All right, so you've sent in a ton of stuff about large language models.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's talking about LLMs,
For sure.
but picking the right one
Right.
feels impossible.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like staring at a giant spice rack.
Totally.
So many options.
And they all kind of look the same
Exactly.
until you taste them.
Well, that's what this deep dive is for.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to break it down, help you make sense of it all.
Absolutely.
So you can choose the right LLM for you.
Exactly what your sources are pointing to.
Yeah.
It's not just about picking the one with the biggest numbers or whatever.
The flashiest name.
Yeah. You got to think about what you actually need it to do.
Makes sense.
Like, how fast does it need to be?
Yeah, how quick?
How deeply do you need it to, like, really think?
Reason. Yeah.
Can it work with images?
Multimodality.
Multimodality. Yeah, all that stuff.
And of course, cost. Yeah, nobody wants to break the bank.
Exactly.
And this is where platforms like
ArcBlock's AVE come in.
Right.
Because they put a bunch of these different models right there for you to try.
It's like a test drive for LLMs.
That's a great way to put it.
So which models are we looking at today?
So we got some big names here. Yeah. I've got ChatGPT, specifically the GPT-4.0 model.
All right.
Then we've got Grok 3.
Okay.
DeepSeek R1. Gemini 2.0 Pro.
Wow.
And Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty competitive field.
It is.
But that's why we're here.
Yeah, our mission today is to give you, the listener, a clear breakdown.
A clear sense of their strengths.
Of their weaknesses.
Exactly, the trade-offs.
So you can make the best choice for you.
Exactly. So where should we start?
Well, I think the first thing is understanding what each model is good at.
Right. It's like they each have their own specialty.
Like specialists on a team.
Exactly. So let's take ChatGPT with GPT-4.0, for example.
Okay.
This one is known for being really versatile, kind of an all-around player.
Right.
And what's unique is that it can work with both text and images.
Right, so it's multimodal.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's really useful.
Super useful for a ton of different things.
So it's kind of like the reliable utility player.
Exactly. It's going to get the job done.
Yet you have Grok 3.
Ah, yes.
And your sources really highlight its reasoning power.
Reasoning is Grok's forte, for sure.
It can handle those really complex questions.
Ones that really make you think.
I was reading in one of the papers about how Grok can do this thing called multi-hop reasoning.
Oh, yeah, multi-hop reasoning.
Some other models struggle with.
Yeah, it's not just about finding information.
Right.
It's about connecting different pieces of information.
Like putting a puzzle together.
Exactly. And Grok is really good at that.
Fascinating.
And then you have DeepSeek R1.
Okay, DeepSeek.
Which takes a totally different approach.
Oh, how so?
Their focus is all about efficiency. They want to be as lightweight as possible.
So not just about raw power.
Exactly. It's about speed.
Yeah.
And using less resources.
So if you need something that's really fast.
Super fast.
And affordable.
Because computing power costs money.
It does.
And DeepSeek is really interesting.
So if speed is your top priority.
Top priority.
DeepSeek is the one to look at.
Definitely for things like real-time tools.
Makes sense.
Now, Gemini 2.0 Pro.
Gemini.
This one is also multimodal.
Oh, like ChatGPT.
Exactly. It can work with both text and visuals.
So what makes Gemini special?
Well, think about things like analyzing images based on text prompts.
Okay.
Or generating creative content.
Wow.
That combines both text and images.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's really good for things like visual search.
Okay.
Or anything that blends different types of media.
So it's kind of like a multimedia powerhouse.
You could say that.
And then we have Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
Claude, yeah, this one is really interesting.
Your sources highlight its reasoning abilities.
Similar to Grok.
Right.
But Claude also has a big focus on safety.
Okay, so it's like the thoughtful reasoner.
The careful one.
It's not just about getting the right answer, but about getting it in a safe and responsible way.
Exactly. That's what makes Claude stand out.
I'm noticing a trend here.
Oh, yeah.
Each model really has its own personality.
That's a good way to put it.
It's like they each have their own strengths and weaknesses.
And that's important to consider.
Right.
When you're choosing the right one for you.
Exactly. So before we go any further,
can
we just recap what each model is best suited for?
Absolutely. So let's start with ChatGPT.
Okay.
This is your go-to for general chat interaction. Things like customer support, generating creative text, and those multimodal applications we talked about.
Text and images.
Exactly. What about Grok?
Grok is your heavy hitter for in-depth question answering.
Okay.
Educational content that requires real understanding.
And those More technical subjects.
Complex stuff.
Exactly.
All right, DeepSeek.
DeepSeek is all about speed.
Right.
So think real-time tools, automated systems where every millisecond counts.
Gotta be fast.
Super fast.
All right, what about Gemini?
Gemini is your multimedia expert.
Right.
So anything with search or blending different media types.
Cool. And finally, Claude.
Claude is your thoughtful and careful reasoner.
Right.
Perfect for educational platforms or situations where you're dealing with sensitive topics.
Where you need those safe and accurate answers.
Exactly.
Now, one thing I'm really happy about is that all these models support multiple languages.
It's kind of a baseline expectation now.
Which is great for anyone building for a global audience.
Makes things so much easier.
All right, so let's get a little bit more technical.
Let's dive deeper.
Let's talk about something called the context window size.
Ah, yes. This is an important one.
I don't really understand what it means.
So basically, the context window size, it determines how much information the model can remember in any given time.
So like its memory.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we measure this in tokens.
Tokens, what are those?
Think of tokens like the building blocks of language.
Okay.
Almost like word pieces.
So wait, a larger context window.
Means the model can remember more.
Of what you've told it.
Exactly. So it can give you more relevant responses.
Especially in longer conversations.
Or when you're working with bigger documents.
So bigger is better.
Generally speaking, yes.
What are the context window sizes for these models?
So your sources give us some estimates.
Okay.
ChatGPT has around 128,000 tokens.
Wow.
Grok is somewhere between 32,000 and 64,000.
Okay.
DeepSeek is in the 16,000 to 32,000 range.
Right.
Gemini is also around 64,000 to 128,000.
Okay.
And Claude is the real standout here.
Oh, yeah.
With a massive 200,000 token window.
200,000 tokens, that's huge.
It's huge.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, with a context window that large, Claude can process really long documents.
Like how long are we talking?
Imagine feeding it an entire research paper.
Wow.
And asking it to summarize the key points.
That's impressive.
It can also handle much more complex conversations.
Okay.
Without losing track of what was said earlier.
So it's like having a really good memory.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to another important factor. Reasoning abilities.
Ah, yes. This is where things get really interesting.
So ChatGPT,
right.
The sources say it's strong in coding.
Makes sense.
And planning.
A lot of developers use it for that.
Right.
Grok is highlighted for its ability to handle complex queries.
The kind that require deep understanding.
Exactly.
What about DeepSeek?
DeepSeek's strengths isn't really deep reasoning.
Okay.
The sources describe its reasoning abilities as more basic.
Which makes sense.
Given its focus on speed.
Right. It's not trying to be a super genius.
Exactly.
Just really fast.
Exactly.
Okay, what about Gemini?
Gemini is seen as having moderate reasoning abilities.
Okay.
Especially for analytical tasks.
So it can think, but maybe not at the level of Grok or Claude.
Right.
And speaking of Claude,
it's Claude.
The sources say it's very strong in both logic and safety.
Which is a really powerful combination.
It is, because it means you can trust its answer.
And that they'll be delivered in a safe and responsible way.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about what each model is good at.
Yeah.
We've talked about context window size.
That's right.
And reasoning abilities.
Important stuff.
Now, what about if you want to customize a model?
You're talking about fine-tuning.
Fine-tuning. Yeah, what is that?
So fine-tuning is basically training the model on your own specific data.
So you're giving it extra study material.
That's a good way to put it.
To help it learn your specific needs.
Exactly.
So which models offer fine-tuning?
So ChatGPT does through its API. And DeepSeek does as well.
DeepSeek?
Yeah, which is interesting.
Why is that?
Well, DeepSeek is more aligned with open source principles.
Okay.
So they give you more control over the process.
That makes sense.
But Grok, Gemini, and Claude, they have more limited fine-tuning options.
So you're kind of stuck with what they already know.
Pretty much you're relying on their pre-trained knowledge.
So if you need something super specific, you might want to go with ChatGPT or DeepSeek.
Exactly. They give you more flexibility.
Okay, now let's get into the real nitty-gritty.
Let's do it.
How do these models actually perform?
Let's talk performance.
The sources give us some qualitative assessments.
Right, because it's not always about hard numbers.
So we're looking at things like accuracy.
How often do they get things right?
Right, fluency.
How natural does their language sound?
Latency.
How quickly do they respond?
Throughput.
How much work can they handle?
And robustness.
How reliable are they over time?
Okay, let's break those down one by one.
Let's do it.
So starting with accuracy.
Accuracy.
It looks like ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and Claude are all rated as high.
High accuracy.
With Claude even getting a very high.
Very high.
DeepSeek is noted as having moderate accuracy.
Moderate?
Does that surprise you?
Not really.
Why not?
Well, remember, DeepSeek is all about speed and efficiency.
So maybe they sacrificed a little bit of accuracy.
It's possible.
To get those faster responses?
Could be a strategic trade-off.
Interesting. Okay, what about fluency?
Fluency.
How natural does their language sound?
This is important for a good user experience.
It is, because you don't want it to sound like a robot.
Exactly.
So ChatGPT and Claude, again, get very high ratings.
Very high.
Grok and Gemini are high.
High fluency.
And DeepSeek is moderate high.
Moderate high.
So for the most human-like responses, ChatGPT and Claude seem to be the best.
It seems that way.
Okay, latency.
Latency.
How fast are they?
This is crucial.
Especially for things like chatbots.
Where you need instant responses.
Right.
So DeepSeek is the clear winner here.
DeepSeek.
Yeah, with low latency.
Low latency.
Which makes sense.
Because that's their main focus.
Exactly. Speed is their thing.
ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and Claude are all moderate.
Moderate latency.
So not bad.
Not bad, but not as fast as DeepSeek.
All right, what about throughput?
Throughput.
How much work can they handle at once?
So ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Gemini are all rated as high.
High throughput.
Which means they can handle a lot of requests simultaneously.
So if you have a lot of users, these models can keep up.
Exactly.
Grok and Claude are medium-high.
Medium-high.
Still good, but maybe not ideal for the most demanding situations.
Exactly.
And finally, robustness.
Robustness.
How reliable are they over time?
This is about consistency.
Right. You want a model that you can count on.
Exactly.
So ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and Claude are all high.
High robustness.
Meaning they're very reliable.
They're the steady performers.
DeepSeek is moderate.
Moderate.
So maybe a bit less predictable.
Potentially.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the different models.
Their strengths and weaknesses.
Context window size.
Reasoning abilities.
Fine-tuning.
Performance metrics.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room.
The big one.
Cost always a factor.
The sources give us a comparison of inference costs.
The cost of actually using the model.
And fine-tuning costs.
Where applicable.
So starting with inference costs.
Right.
DeepSeek is the cheapest.
DeepSeek.
With a low cost.
Low cost.
Which again makes sense.
Because they're all about efficiency.
ChatGPT and Gemini are moderate high.
Moderate high.
Grok and Claude are moderate?
Moderate.
So if you're running these models at scale?
Right.
Cost is definitely something to consider.
A big factor.
Now for fine-tuning costs.
Right.
ChatGPT is high.
High.
DeepSeek is low.
Low.
Again, probably because it's more open source. Yeah, that usually means lower costs.
And for Grok, Gemini, and Claude, fine-tuning costs are not really applicable.
Because their fine-tuning options are limited.
Right. Okay, so we've covered a lot of information.
We have.
It's a lot to digest.
It is.
So let's try to simplify it.
Yeah, let's give the listeners some actionable advice.
Exactly.
So the sources suggest, starting with your top priority, what matters most to you.
Is it speedle?
Getting answers as quickly as possible.
Is it smarts?
Having the most capable and intelligent model.
Or is it savings?
Keeping costs as low as possible.
I like that framework.
It's a good starting point.
So if you're looking for an all-around good option, something reliable and versatile, the sources point to ChatGPT.
ChatGPT with GPT-4.0.
As a solid choice.
A good starting point.
But if speed and affordability are your main concerns, DeepSeek R1 is the way to go.
DeepSeek R1 for speed and saving.
And if you need to work with images or other media,
multimodal.
Gemini 2.0 Pro is the one to look at.
Gemini for all things multimedia.
And for those really complex tasks.
Yeah, the ones that require deep thought.
Grok 3 and Claude 3.5 Sonnet are the best.
Grok for power and Claude for safety.
Now, all of these models are available through ArcBlock's AGI platform.
AGI makes it easy to access them all.
And you can even test them out.
Yeah, you can try them before you buy.
Head over to store.blocklet.dev.
That's right.
To launch AGI and start experimenting.
And the best part is you can switch between models.
So if one isn't working out, you can easily try another one.
It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And you have different options for running these models.
Right.
You can use ArcBlock's Blocklet launcher.
Which is super easy.
Or you can set up your own Blocklet server.
For more control over your infrastructure.
So AG really gives you a lot of flexibility.
It does.
And a lot of power.
A whole suite of LLMs at your fingertips.
Let's recap one last time.
Right, let's summarize
what each model is best at.
So we have ChatGPT, the well-rounded multimodal option.
Grok 3.
Grok 3, the powerhouse reasoner.
DeepSeek R1.
DeepSeek R1, the speed demon.
Gemini 2.0 Pro.
Gemini 2.0 Pro, the multimedia maestro.
And Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the thoughtful and careful one.
That's a great way to put it.
And the best part is,
yeah,
you can start building with these models today.
Using AG's no-code interface.
Head over to www.ang.io to learn more.
That sounds awesome.
It is.
Now, before we wrap up,
yeah,
we have one more deep dive coming up.
Oh yes, this one is important.
All about ensuring the quality and safety
of AI responses,
which is crucial
if you want to build reliable applications.
We'll be covering that in our next episode.
Stay tuned.
All right, so one final thought for you.
Yeah.
To really chew on.
A thought experiment.
We've talked about context window size.
Right. The model's memory.
And fine-tunability.
How much you can customize it.
How do these factors change?
Yeah.
What's possible with AI?
How do they change the way we interact with AI?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
We encourage you to explore the resources we've mentioned.
Those technical reports.
The AGN documentation.
And the ArcBlock website.
There's so much to learn.
And this field is constantly evolving.
So keep exploring.
And stay curious.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
On The Deep Dive.
Deep Dive.